Good morning, my creative friends. Dr. Manette Riordan here, and this is Painting in Your PJs live with Manette. See if we can get that a little better focused. And it is already coming to the end of February, and man, what a excuse me, full and crazy month it has been. So if you're new to Painting in Your PJs live with me, I love to talk about all things life, love, art, creativity, self care, mindfulness, and I'm passionate about using art as creative process and as a form of mindfulness. So, mindfulness for me is all about being very present and aware in the moment. And I'm just getting myself all set up over here. See if we can bring this down a little bit. Bear with me while I do a little bit of just jostling here. I got my camera all crooked all of a sudden, and I'm trying to figure out why. Okay, so it's a little bit crooked, but we're just gonna go with it, and I'll just turn my paper so it doesn't feel quite so crooked. But I love art as a form of mindful meditation. And so I thought that I would just simply enjoy some mindful creative play myself this morning. It's been a long and full week. And also, enrollment is open for our Mindful Patterns membership. The link for that is in the description to this email, but also the link to this Sacred Circle design is also in the classroom, and I'm going to stick it here in the chat as well for anyone that's joining me live. You can download this particular design and play along with me if you'd like to, or work on whatever you choose to. But I like this design, and these are all designed by my son Connor Dobson, and we've been doing this work together for probably close to just grabbing a little sip of water there. So we've been doing this work probably close to a decade where he's been designing what we call sacred circles. They are very much like a mandala design, but mandalas are designed often for religious purposes, even though we see them all the time in different coloring books in lots of ways that they're being used for all kinds of things. But for Connor and I, our sacred circles are geometric designs encouraged to inspire creativity and mindful creative play. And mindfulness for me is very much about just being present in the moment with wherever I am. And I'm noticing it's the end of the week. I'm feeling a little tired today. It's been a full and busy week. It's cold outside, and it would be lovely to be just snuggled up on the couch. I have a full day ahead, and so I know the thing that's going to benefit me the most is just taking some time to pause this morning, right? Taking some time to pause this morning with one of these beautiful designs. And so this particular design is from our Mindful Patterns membership from I think it was the January edition. And every month I have Connor create some of the designs that are a little bit more open and lend themselves well to adding marks, patterns, and especially Zentangle-inspired designs. So this was one that I cut out from the page and used Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2s to color, and then matte medium to seal that and kind of move the color around the page, and got it adhered to a nice piece of mixed media paper. So I'm not sure where I'm going to go with this, but what I do know today is that what I really wanted was just to be present here on the page with whoever's joining me live this morning and just to indulge in some quiet, mindful play. So if you are here joining me live this morning, I'd love for you to say good morning and let me know that you're here. Blow that screen up a little bigger so I can see it. And maybe even move this down a little bit more. One thing about my software is that it doesn't let me access the zoom on my camera very well. There we go. That's a little bit better, and I'm knocking everything over in the process. So I love this design. Pouring rain, well, that's a good thing. I heard that it's pretty cold and rainy over there, and my brother lives in Santa Barbara, and they're expecting snow in the mountains, which means you'll be getting snow in the mountains in LA as well. It's sunny here this morning after a very, very snowy day today. So again, you can find the link in the comments. I'll put that in there one more time to download this particular design. And it's gonna send, maybe. It's also in the link in the description of this video. There it goes. And draw along with me this morning if you choose. And each of our sacred circle designs also includes an affirmation of the day. And today's affirmation was, all my potential exists within me at this moment. And I so love that statement. All my potential exists within me at this moment. There's nothing I need to do. I have everything that I need right now in this moment. And I think so often it's easy for us to forget that and to be in the energy of striving and busyness, and I have to do more, learn more. As a recovering overachiever, I was so driven for so long, and now I spend a lot more time in this space and energy of just mindful creative play, because when I give myself permission to be here now, I can really get that idea that all potential, all my potential is right here, right now. There's nothing I need to do. And when I can start my day from the magic and energy of this place, of this just sort of quiet, mindful, focused space, the rest of my day goes so much better. The rest of my day goes so much better. So I encourage you to download this design and play along with me. You don't even have to color it, or you could sit and color quietly for an hour. And the colors of this one were inspired by a guided meditation that we did in my color coded emotions workshop about traveling within to a favorite sacred place. And I always go to a place in the forest by a waterfall, and it's so green and lush. And I remember living in Santa Barbara, and in the summer, the things could get quite brown there, even though it was very beautiful and very dry. And right now it's very brown here in the dead of winter. And I get to these moments when I'm longing for green. I'm longing for that sense of aliveness in that damp cold. A few years ago, we were taking my daughter to visit different universities up the West Coast. And we went to visit the redwood forests in Northern California, way up in Northern California, at the very top, just below Oregon border. And I remember being in that lush, damp forest and thinking, I didn't know I needed this green. And so I love working with both color and pattern as I'm working on these designs, because when we're looking at color and being mindful of the colors we choose, so these feel spring, bright, but they're also very cool colors. right? There's a little bit of warmth in there, but there's a lot of coolness in here as well. And so then it gets me thinking about what is it that I'm longing for right now? And how can I create more of that in my life? Last weekend, we went up to visit my mom and stepdad up in Estes Park. And just being up, and we took a beautiful drive up into Rocky Mountain National Park. And to be in the green, all the different shades of green of the pines and the spruce. It's like that touch of green that I need. And as we get closer to March, I can feel that longing for spring. And we had this funny little taste of it. Good morning, Judy. This funny little taste of spring where 2 days ago it was in the 50s, right? And then yesterday it was very, very cold and snowy. And from where I live, I can walk down to a beautiful river and get that sense of the flowing water, something else that nurtures and nourish me. So sometimes working with color allows us to bring that outside in to just create that beautiful feeling of, asking ourselves, what is it that I need right now? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? And I'm just having fun adding marks and patterns to Connor's beautiful sacred circle design. You're just joining me. The link to download this design is in the description of the video. I also put it in the comments a little bit earlier. So if you feel like playing along with me, you can print that out and play along with me this morning. And I sat here for a while at my art table this morning and looking around at all the things and just asking myself, what is it that I need this morning the most? What would serve me the most? And I thought about doing collage and I thought about painting. And then ultimately, I'm like, I need the quiet and the stillness and just the calmness. And a lot of times we think about art and creative play simply as that, opportunity to make something beautiful, and it can be, or to learn something new. But for me, the most powerful part of creative process is the mindfulness of bringing ourselves into the present moment, right here, right now. I have nowhere else to be, nothing else I have to do right now, and giving myself that luxury of time to just be here now. And I find we don't always gift ourselves that time and that opportunity for quiet creative play. And I've mentioned before my 6 pillars of a radiant life, one of which is deep reflection, another which is deep connection. And by simply coloring or adding patterns to these sacred circle designs, it creates the moment for deep reflection. I'm here with myself on the page. Nothing is pulling me away. When my hands are busy, it deepens my focus. It deepens my connection to myself and becomes a form of self care. Anytime we pause to create, to breathe, to meditate, to walk in nature, these are all beautiful examples of self care. And so I'm just following along with Connor's design, adding patterns, adding details. And I find in doing this work, there aren't that many different marks that I choose to make. When I get to some of these bigger spaces, I can add some more traditional Zentangle patterns, which I love. If you're not familiar with Zentangle, Zentangle is a meditative form of drawing created by Rick Roberts and Maria Thomas. I became a certified Zentangle teacher way back in 2014, and it's one of the things that I return to over and over again. As a creative, I tend to get bored and want to learn new things and try new things. But even after a decade, I think I started tingling probably way back in 2010. It's one of the practices that's never left me, and I think it is the opportunity it creates for that mindful self reflection on the page. This is often my evening practice. I will sit in front of the television and draw, or sit quietly in front of the fireplace and work on a sacred circle pattern. Coming in with just some little rows of triangles. It's fun to work in these tiny spaces and to challenge myself to come up with different tiny little patterns that will fit into these little spaces. And I'm working with a Micron PN, which is a little bit of a chunkier pen, not as fine as the O1, which I love, but sometimes the O1 doesn't love these bumpy surfaces and it can tear up the tip. And this PN has a nice thicker rubber tip, and so it's better sometimes for drawing over the tops of other things. And you notice I'm turning my page as I go, making it easier for my hand to draw. We talked about that a little bit yesterday too, making it so that I'm moving the page and not trying to contort my hand. And I don't even need to fill every space on here. Another thing that I love about working with Connor's designs, and where he leaves these lots of small spaces, is learning to leave white space. And white space just leaves breathing room on the page, a place for the viewer's eye to rest. As a Zentangle artist, I could easily fill every single little nook and cranny with patterns and marks and lines. But what I've discovered is that having space on the page to rest is a good thing. So I'm going to put a fun pattern in here called Betweed. And it always ends up looking a little bit like a woven pattern. It's kind of fun. It's kind of a small space for it, so I'm not getting a lot of them in there. But just beginning to ask yourself questions about why you make art and how does making art serve you? What are the benefits that you receive? And it's often beyond the obvious, right? Beyond the obvious. I've been reading this book called Essentialism. And there was a point about that I was going to make. What was it? What was I reading in Essentialism that made me think about my creative practice? Has a lot to do with about being very intentional, choosing how we spend our time, maximizing the benefits of time spent in eliminating the things that really don't serve us, that don't bring us joy, that don't actually move us forward. And I think that's so important. So, good morning. If you're just joining us, pop in and say hello. I am doing some mindful drawing on one of my son Connor's sacred circle designs this morning. Felt like I needed a little quiet restfulness on the page this morning. A little quiet restfulness on the page this morning. And so I'm just coming in, adding marks, patterns, some floral designs, kind of anything that just sort of sparks my own interest this morning. And I put the link to this particular design if you want to play along with me. It is in the comments and also in the description of the video. And this is the practice that we teach and encourage others to do in our Mindful Patterns membership, which is a monthly membership for as little as $10 a month. We actually send you 6 of these original beautiful designs every single month, either digitally or in the mail, depending on your membership level. And we gather twice a month for mindful meditation and creative play in community. And in our call this week, we had such a rich discussion about self-compassion and self-care and the ways that we approach that and the struggles that we have. So we end up talking about all kinds of things as part of that practice. And the slower that my hand goes, the more likely I am to have those lines stay a little bit more even and round, although I like them when they get to be a little more wonky looking. And I think I'm going to put a fun leaf pattern in here that I'm going to kind of squish in here called Toodles. Just imagining that there's some leaves growing into these spaces here. And this is one of the designs I colored with Carinda Ash Neo Color 2 and then pasted it with matte medium into my journal. I love drawing orbs. I can fill spaces with orbs for days. Now I'm trying to decide if I want to repeat these elements in a traditional mandala or sacred circle design. There's always a lot of symmetry, right? There's a lot of repetition. The original concept of the sacred circle or the mandala, which is a Sanskrit word that literally means circle, is that it represents both the whole as well as each of the individual parts. They were often divided into quarters, and the quarters represented different directions, different spheres. They had a lot of symbolic meaning. But aesthetically, they were so beautiful, often because of the symmetry. And so I can decide if I want to repeat these patterns all the way around or change them up. Sometimes I get bored doing the same patterns. And then sometimes I decide that I really love the symmetry of the design. So I always encourage people to really explore what it is they love. Do you love symmetry? Do you love variety? You could use the spaces to play, challenge yourself to try lots of different patterns and designs. It's impossible not to slow down my breathing, noticing when I'm holding my hand too tight and I need to relax my hand, relax my shoulders, noticing even when I'm holding my breath and I need to pause and breathe. I tend to hold my breath a lot. Wasn't really conscious of that for a long time. And so now I'm much more present to, okay, Minette, pause, take a breath, pause, take a breath. And I'm pleased with how this is coming along. Feeling rich and floral, again, capturing that longing right now for some spring colors and some spring greens, some beautiful flowing water. So the colors, the designs, and the patterns kind of pull all of that together. So both in the color language, the color story that I'm telling, and in the patterns and designs that I'm choosing are an expressive capture of how I'm feeling. I do feel really calm, but also what is it that I'm longing for? It's a beautiful question to ask yourself, to take to a journal or into a meditation. What are you longing for? Especially on these really cold days, I can get antsy and I really long to be outside. And so once it gets back into the 20s again, I will get myself bundled up and get outside for a walk and some fresh air. How's everyone else doing this morning? What are you working on this morning? This is a slow, quiet process. Great to draw along or to just simply watch and enjoy some quiet time this morning. If you're here watching live, stop by and say hello. It's always nice to know that you're here. I know people pop in and out in the morning, which is wonderful as well. And this is our last live show of the week. We'll be back next Monday. We're going to take some time next week to really talk about expressive and narrative arts and how we can use the arts for self-expression, personal growth. I'll show you some different types of expressive arts activities, things that I do on a regular basis just for my own personal growth, for that deep reflection and connection to self. Bring in maybe a few more journaling prompts. And maybe, excuse me, it's boring to sit here and watch me just draw. And I'm okay with that too, because what I'm going for this morning is a little bit of boring. Boredom is actually a breeding ground for creativity. Did you know that? Boredom is a really good thing. Boredom is a really good thing because it means that our brains are quieting down. We start to look for new connections and ideas. Wonderful, Judy. I'm glad I've inspired you to do some Zentangle today. So when we allow ourselves time and freedom to get, yeah, right? I long to be at the beach too. On a warm, sunny day, especially. When we give ourselves time to be bored, excuse me, it actually stokes our imagination, right? If we don't constantly fill our lives, our minds, our hands with input, and we allow some time for boredom, for daydreaming, it stokes the fires of our imagination. And we start to see new connections, come up with new ideas. If we're always relying on input, our mind doesn't have time to be active and original. So, remember being a kid? I think most of us are of the generation that, we spend a lot of time playing outside, making up games. We didn't have lots of access to cable TV and computer games. And we relied a lot more on our imagination and our creativity to make up things. Hmm, I love the way this is coming along. Lovely. I think it's one of the things that I love about coloring sacred circles and Zentangle, both different approaches, but both that mindful activity that just quiets my brain down enough that I can focus, I can see new things, start to make new connections. I come up with some of my best business ideas when I'm making art, when I'm in that space of just mindful creative play. What I also love about sacred circles and Zentangle, another thing they have in common, is they're very portable. So I take them to the beach. I take them on airplanes. I take them in the car. Love to sit in coffee shops. So I always have a journal, a few of these sacred circles, a few colored pencils, and a couple of black pens. Doesn't take a lot. So I also love the portability of the practice. So it's coming along nicely. I'm thinking I'm going to want to go back with some colored pencils and add, brighten up the colors, add some shading. So a design like this could take me days to complete. It's not necessarily something that I would complete in one sitting, right? So the first step was I added the color and then cut it out and glued it into my journal. So that was step one. And then I let it get good and dry, because if I don't let it get dry, it's going to ruin the tips of my pen. So I actually let it dry for a couple of days while I decided where I wanted to go next with it. And now I'm adding the marks and patterns, and I would let that ink get nice and dry, and then I will probably come back over the top with my beloved Prismacolor pencils, which are nice and waxy, and add more color, add a little more vibrancy to all of this as well. And sometimes I get bored with the patterns and where I'm going, and I definitely want to repeat the pattern, but I'm like, nah, I'm kind of over drawing that right now. I just move to a different part of the design to work on. So sometimes I work from the inside and go all the way out, and then sometimes I might work on half or a piece of it at a time to determine what those patterns are going to be. And so find your own process for working on these designs as well. So I think I'm going to come in and just add some arches in this outer circle here. And again, the slower I go, the more even those arches are. I don't mind if they're a little wonky, but if I just take my time, if I start to go too fast, or if I don't pause to turn the page, they end up even wonkier. Or I go outside the space, so just noticing when I'm wanting to speed up and when I need to just remember to slow down. And then just creating some inner auras in Zentangle language inside those arches. And just these simple patterns create such beauty. You know, they oftentimes we might see Zentangle work and think it's complicated, but really it's one stroke at a time. One stroke at a time. And I find that having a regular Zentangle practice helps with my ability to draw with my line confidence. So it has a lot of benefits, both on the side of mindfulness, but on the side of our growth as artists and creatives as well. And once I start, it's so hard to stop. Like I find myself, it's, oh, I have a meeting at 9 o'clock. I have to go get showered and have some breakfast. And really, all I want to do is just sit here and play. But the truth is, this is one I will take into my meeting. I will be able to draw while I have my meeting. Let me see. Let me find a. I'll come in with an O1, which is much tinier. And I'm wanting to just get some little orbs into this smaller space, and I think I'm going to be happier working with the smaller nib pen. So getting those little tiny, I love them. They look like little strings of pearls to me. Again, taking my time, going slow. And the more you draw orbs, the rounder they get, the easier it becomes. And we call them orbs, not circles, because they're not intended to be perfect. When we think of circles, we think like the sacred circle design, that there's this perfect roundness to it. I feel little kitty paws on my hip over here. Someone's trying to get up in my lap. What are you doing? Good morning. You gonna come say hello? Come on, cutie pie. Yep. She likes to come by in the morning and see what's going on. It's hard to draw over the top of her, though. Yeah, you're not helping. Nope. You can say hello and go away. Just taking my time going around the circle with those sweet little orbs. I love it starting to come together. And I mentioned earlier that our Mindful Patterns membership is open right now, and I have a special bonus class. The class will be for sale also, and for right now, it's included free with the Mindful Patterns membership. And I wanted to show you a little bit about my creative process. I've been having fun practicing doing Zentangle-inspired sacred circles. So these are all Zentangle designs that are botanical in nature. And I had a lot of fun really practicing, seeing what I loved, playing with markers and color palettes. So this is one I'm actually going to be teaching at a live in-person class. I loved this one. I love again, so this is a great example of a lot of symmetry, but each one of these is an actual Zentangle pattern, and I've become addicted to doing these botanical designs and have decided I want to teach a class on how to do them. So that class is going to be coming in at the end of March. So this was a fun one that I drew and colored, so that was one that got a little wonky and out of control, and I didn't quite work out the way I want, but you can see how much time I spend just in practice. So I'm thinking this might be the one that I actually teach because it's so beautiful. I really love the patterns, and it looks so complicated, but it's really quite simple, all done one stroke at a time. So the class is going to be called Zen Gone Wild, and I'm super excited to teach something new and Zentangle inspired that I haven't taught for a while. So that's going to be coming up. So watch for more information about that, but also be sure to check out our Mindful Patterns membership. It's a monthly membership really focused on using our creative practice as a spiritual and sacred practice for self care, mindfulness, and play. And I found that when we can integrate self care, spirituality, and creativity, that it creates more meaning all the way around, that we're more likely to stick to the practice. Where if we feel like all of our self care practices are different and individual, thank you, Judy, then we're less likely to stick with them or feel like, oh, I don't have the time to take on one more thing. So I always get really curious about how can I create practices that will nourish and support me in all the different ways that I love to play. And so that combined with Connor's love of creating these designs was how we birthed the idea for our Mindful Patterns membership, which is a monthly membership where we spend time in community, in meditation and co-creation. Connor creates 6 original designs each month. And for $17 a month, we mail those directly to you in the US and Canada. But you also get access to the digital designs that you can print out and color over and over again. Thank you, Blanca. Yeah, I'm super excited about the class. And I'm teaching the class as a way to practice what I'm going to be teaching live at an event in April that's just for certified Zentangle teachers. And I realize, okay, I need to practice the timing of this and so I figured I might as well just invite other people to come along and play with me. The Mindful Patterns membership includes 2 live calls a month at different times of day, one in the afternoon, one in the morning, to accommodate people's schedules, guided meditations every month. Connor curates some beautiful color palettes for color inspiration because sometimes we can not know where we want to start with color. It's like something's just missing here in these little. So I love just dashes, dots, and lines. Like we don't always have to have our patterns be super complicated to have them be really luscious. And so curating collections of marks and patterns is a fun thing to do. What are the patterns you love, the lines and marks that you tend to make over and over and over again? And it's hard to believe almost an hour has gone by already. I can feel that my body is more relaxed than when I started. I messed up my pattern. Instead of putting my between in there, I put the floral pattern in there, but by the time the whole thing is said and done, nobody will notice but me. Nobody will notice but me. I can also notice when I start to get tired, my hand gets tired, I start to get a little sloppy, my lines aren't as neat, and I know also when it's time to take a break. And so I'm starting to feel that sense of, it's time to get up and stretch my body. So I encourage you, when you do have some luscious, long art making sessions, don't forget to stand, to move, to stretch. At least once an hour, move your body so you don't find yourself getting too stiff. Keep that blood flowing. Really important to move. We have become such a sedentary culture. And art is often a sedentary practice. It's one of the reasons I love painting big on canvas. and just taking the time to pause and blacken in some of these little open spaces around my petals helps create more contrast in the design. You could tell on the one where I missed, right, that it didn't show as much on the page. So looking for where do you need a little more contrast? I tend to draw a lot of these open botanical type patterns, so I need to look for places where I can add a little bit more black to my design so that it does stand out a little bit more, right? Because it can get to where it just all ends up looking the same. So I look for ways that I can just come in and add some pure black. I love these little tootle leaves. They're fun to draw. They're a very playful shape. They're very simple to draw. And there I finish the center of my design. And it's probably a good time to pause and take a break, get ready for the rest of my day, knowing that I can come back here at any time. This one will probably get carried upstairs to get finished later this evening when I am sitting down to relax. So, super excited about the progress and where it's going. As always, thank you so much for joining me. This is Dr. Minette Riordan. This is Painting in Your PJs with Minette, and today we enjoyed just some mindful, creative play and relaxation. And I'm staying present today to that affirmation that came with this particular design. All my potential exists in this moment. All my potential exists in this moment. That's all I need to know right now and take away with me into my day. Thank you so much for joining me live, for popping in and out, or sticking it out for the whole hour. And I'll be back next week, Monday morning, 7 a.m. Mountain Time, for Painting in Your PJs Live with Minette. Have a beautiful rest of your day.